We have Apple, as you know, it's coming in, and I had a little problem with Tim Cook yesterday. I said to him, Tim, you're my friend. I treated you very good. You're coming here with $500 billion, but now I hear you're building all over India. I don't want you building in India. You can build in India. So we go from the highest tariff. You couldn't do business in India. It started with a handshake in Doha. But behind that smile was a message that detonated across global boardrooms like a bomb. A message not from a diplomat, not from a trade envoy, but from Donald Trump himself. The words were simple, brutal. Tim, we are not interested in you building in India. And just like that, the most powerful tech company on earth was dragged into a war it never wanted. A war between globalization and nationalism, between supply chains and sovereignty. Trump had drawn a red line. He had just declared that America first meant Apple last if Tim Cook dared to keep expanding overseas. And this time, the target was not China, it was India. Before we continue, hit that like button to help us beat the YouTube algorithm and to show your support. This was not a campaign soundbite, it was a threat. Behind closed doors, Trump confronted Cook directly. The setting was tense, diplomatic, but under the surface, volatile. Apple had spent years delicately shifting production out of China, not to the United States, but to India, a rising giant. A country offering tax breaks, cheap labor, and a government eager to dethrone China as the world's factory floor. In March alone, Apple shipped over 3 million iPhones from India straight to American customers. Nearly every single unit made there was bound for the United States. In just 1 year, Apple manufactured more than $20 billion worth of devices on Indian soil. And that, in Trump's mind, was treason. Because for him, this was no longer about trade, it was about identity. MAGA, he said, is about making America great, not India. The room went silent because everyone knew what came next. Tariffs, investigations, public humiliation, or worse. And now Apple was cornered. Tim Cook had spent years cultivating Trump's favor, flattering him, appeasing him, finding loopholes to avoid punishment. During Trump's first term, he had walked a tightrope, earning the nickname Tim Apple after a bizarre presidential slip-up. But this time, the stakes were different. Trump was not joking, and this was not China. This was the country Apple had bet its future on, a future now hanging by a thread. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button to show your support to the channel. In India, the reaction was swift. Government officials were stunned, not afraid, not angry, just stunned. One senior advisor said bluntly, Apple is making its decisions based on global competitiveness, not political outbursts. Behind the scenes, Indian ministers called Apple directly. What they got back was clear and calm. Apple was not backing down. India, they were told, remains essential to Apple's global supply chain, and nothing, not even presidential tantrums, would change that. That quiet defiance shook Washington, because in that moment, India was not just standing up for itself, it was standing up to Trump. And Apple was choosing New Delhi over the Oval Office. Why? Because the math is brutal. Building an iPhone entirely in the United States would cost over $3,500 per unit. The current iPhone sells for less than $1,000. Apple would need to triple the price just to break even, and no one is buying a $4,000 phone. So Trump's demand, move production to the United States, or else was not just unrealistic, it was suicidal. Still, Trump doubled down. In public speeches, he claimed Apple had promised to increase United States production. In private, his advisors scrambled to figure out if that was even possible, but insiders confirmed what analysts already knew. Apple could not make that shift, not without detonating its entire business model. So what was Trump really doing? Playing chess. Because while the world focused on Apple, something even more explosive was happening on American soil. The nation's largest retailer, Walmart, had just received a direct warning from the President of the United States. Do not raise prices. Walmart, he said, should eat the tariffs, not pass them on to customers. This came after the Treasury Secretary himself admitted what millions of shoppers already feared. The cost of Trump's trade war was about to hit the checkout aisle. Prices on everyday goods were about to go up, and Walmart, the empire of affordability, was on the front lines. Trump's message was crystal clear: absorb the cost or take the blame. Behind the scenes, the Secretary of Treasury even picked up the phone and called Walmart's CEO, and what he heard was not promising. Walmart was trying, but it could not eat everything. Some price hikes had already started and more were coming. This was not a guess. It was already happening, and Trump knew it. Because for all the bluster about tariffs being a negotiation tool, the economic pain was spreading. Walmart shoppers were starting to feel it, and they were not happy. That was the hidden cost of this new nationalism. And it was spreading like a virus, infecting trade deals, manufacturing hubs, even real estate. Yes, real estate. As the uncertainty of global trade grew worse, rich investors started pouring their money into luxury properties because bricks and land felt safer than factories and exports. In Taiwan, thousands of tech executives descended on Computex, Asia's largest technology trade show, not just to launch products, but to whisper about tariffs. The conversation on everyone's lips was not innovation, it was risk. Could their chips still be sold to the United States? Would new sanctions block shipments? Would the next Trump tweet up their entire supply chain? Even Nvidia, the crown jewel of artificial intelligence, was feeling the heat. Under pressure, it had pledged to start manufacturing $500 billion worth of server hardware inside the United States. A move that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. Now it was survival. Because this was not just about Apple, it was about every company caught in the jaws of a global trade war. And in the middle of it all stood India, the new battleground. For years, New Delhi had positioned itself as the next big manufacturing powerhouse, luring companies with tax incentives, infrastructure, and political stability. Apple was just one of many, but it was the crown jewel. Now that jewel was being threatened, Trump's threat was simple. You can manufacture in India or you can sell in America, but not both. But the world is not that simple anymore. Apple, caught between two superpowers, has no easy way out. If it caves to Trump, it loses its cost advantage. If it defies him, it risks tariffs that could wipe out entire profit lines. And what happens next could decide the future of the entire global economy. Because if Apple stands its ground, others will follow. Samsung, Microsoft, Intel, Tesla. They will all look to India, Vietnam, Mexico, anywhere but China. But if Trump punishes Apple, if he starts slapping tariffs on Indian-made iPhones, then we are heading for something even more dangerous. A trade war not just with China, but with India, a country of over 1.4 billion people, a rising superpower, a strategic partner, and the next front in the war over where things get made. This is not just a business story, it is a geopolitical bomb waiting to explode. Because what Trump did in that room with Tim Cook was not just about Apple. It was a message to every CEO, every investor, every country on Earth. You are either building in America or you are building against America. And that is the most radical shift in global trade policy we have seen in modern history. It is nationalism at full throttle. But what happens when the numbers do not add up? What happens when making everything in America makes nothing affordable? What happens when tariffs become taxes on the poor? Those questions are now staring the country in the face. From Walmart aisles to iPhone factories, from Doha boardrooms to Indian tech corridors, the storm is already here. And the man at the center of it is Donald Trump, a president-turned-kingmaker, a populist with the power to rewrite the rules of global capitalism with a single sentence. And that sentence was this: Tim, we are not interested in you building in India. What comes next? We are about to find out, and it will not be quiet. across the country were warning that demand was softening. And then it happened. Walmart quietly began routing supply chains. Manufacturing orders that once went to Arkansas or North Carolina were now heading to Mexico and Southeast Asia. Shipments were being redirected, contracts were being rewritten, and internal memos made it clear survival required agility, and agility meant going global fast. And when Trump found out, he exploded. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button to show your support to the channel. Multiple sources confirmed that Trump, in a closed ED door-or meeting, screamed that Walmart had betrayed the American people. He threatened to revoke federal contracts, called for a boycott, and even floated the idea of investigating the company for disloyalty to U.S. workers. The tantrum was so intense that aides reportedly had to calm Trump down before his next public appearance, but the damage was done. Walmart, for the first time in its modern history, had publicly defied a Republican president, and not just any president. The man who claimed he would bring jobs back, who ran on promises of American-made prosperity, who now stood face to face with the economic monster he created. Walmart's financials tell the real story. First quarter profits fell short. Analysts had predicted a modest gain. Instead, tariffs blew a hole in the bottom line. CEO Doug McMillon admitted, quote, "Tariffs are still too high. We cannot absorb them forever. Consumers will feel it." That was not a warning. That was a surrender. Because Walmart does not just sell groceries and TVs. It is a barometer of working-class America. It touches every zip code, every demographic. And when Walmart says it is feeling pain, the entire economy is trembling. And now it is shifting. Behind the scenes, Walmart has launched a new initiative called Grow With Us, focused on investing in overseas partnerships to diversify away from tariff-heavy supply routes. At the same time, the company is accelerating automation in US stores to offset labor costs, meaning fewer cashiers, fewer stockers, fewer American jobs. So, yes, Walmart is still here, but the writing is on the wall.